Hi, this is Randy Larocque with Sinister podcast from Surrey, British Columbia, Canada. We're going to be talking about all things music with musicians, photographers, producers, engineers, and luthiers. So stay tuned and let's get this started, shall we? Go. Do the quick little snot check, food check, make sure there's nothing in the beard. Oh, hey, it's Randy Larocque here, and this is the Sinister podcast, and this is episode 2. Yes, episode 2. Today we have the good fortune of interviewing a good friend of mine that I've played a number of gigs with. His name is Mr. Kim Whitford, and he is the guitar player and singer for Stickman here in the lower mainland of Vancouver. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Kim Whitford. How you doing, buddy?
Excellent, excellent. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Tell me a little bit about Stickman, because we've played a number of gigs together, and
Yep.
whenever I'm telling somebody, oh yeah, we got a gig coming up, we're playing with Stickman, they're like, oh cool, what kind of music do they play? I'm like, and it has nothing to do with you guys. I don't know how to subgenre music anymore. I mean, when I was a teenager, there was 6, 7 different genres, and
Yeah.
that was it. Now there's like a gazillion. How would you describe Stickman?
Well, we are definitely inspired by 90s grunge is kind of where, my wheelhouse of, when I was in my mid 20s, that was the wheelhouse of the music that I really loved. That's when I really developed songwriting as a skill.
Mm-hmm.
I've been writing music since I was about 15, but my early 20s, 23 to 27. That's when I really.
No kidding.
There is so many categories. It's Stickman. It's hard rock.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's serious. Like lyrically, a lot of serious issues that I like to write about. But I kind of mask them, like a lot of it's political, but I try to mask them to be a little more open to interpretation for people, right? Where it can be a relationship.
Great, yeah.
It can seem like a relationship, but most of my lyrics are political. So
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, there's, like you were talking about, the 90s grunge kind of sound. So, I mean, everybody always comes up to you and says, who do you sound like?
yeah.
I mean, I know when people ask me that, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, because we're influenced by so many different. So, I guess my first question is who was the band or that individual that said, I want to play guitar, I want to be that kind of person?
Well, interesting story. So 8 years ago, I had a heart attack.
Oh,
And
Jesus.
yeah. Again, I had stopped playing music for about 10 years. I started playing music again prior to that, about 6 months. While I was off work with my heart attack, I bought a new guitar and just started writing again because I had the time. It's always, you never have enough. We just started writing music, and, next thing we knew, we had enough material for a couple albums. So we put out one great big album. I wasn't sure if I was ever going to do this again. Didn't know if I was going to gig,
Yeah, blow your bag on the first one, right? Because you never know.
Yeah, right. So what did we have? 17 songs on the first album, right? And it was a little bit of a concept, in like a loose concept, in the fact that, like it was a little bit telling about my journey, about the heart attack. Very cinematic with a lot of the segues. And then, we found Des Vegas, our drummer, who I've known since I was 15 as well, but had never played in a band. We were both drummers, right? That's how we met. We were both in band.
Okay.
And so we lived in the same neighborhood. Well, I ran into him, and that's been 7 years now since the band has been going. And I've never been in a band this long with no changes to the lineup.
Yeah,
It's been quite refreshing.
That's amazing, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, musicians are very creative and very set in their ways. They have their own vision.
Absolutely.
And if the visions eventually stop being aligned and they go their separate ways, I mean, that's just the way it goes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because most musicians I know have big personalities, right?
That's absolutely
part of what they do. It takes a lot of cojones to get up on stage in front of a bunch of people. And
it really does.
Relying on you to entertain them, and you're playing your own stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because like Randy and myself, we have pretty clear visions of what we want, and sometimes they align and sometimes they don't. I'll come up with an idea and I'll have, an idea of where I want this to go. And he comes in and he's like, no, no, I don't like that. Let's do this. Always for the better. Sometimes it's hard at first. It's like, oh, yeah, no, I don't like what you're saying. And then, you hear the end result and it's like, yeah, it wouldn't turn out that way if it was just me doing it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the beauty. Sometimes that friction, and it's minimal friction, but sometimes that friction is where the magic happens, right?
And
So
you're a 3-piece band, so
yeah,
imagine like I'm in a 5-piece band. So
yeah,
and we, all the different age groups, upbringings, different music influences, and all that kind of stuff.
absolutely.
I mean, it's challenging, right? Especially when when it's like making a sauce. Every time you add something different to it, it changes that flavor of that sauce, right?
Yeah,
So trying
yeah,
to keep that balance between buddies and musicians is very, very challenging. So kudos for you for 7 years.
yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. And like I said, our sound has really developed over the years. Like when our first album, it was kind of a mixed bag. There was some heavy stuff, for us. We're not super heavy, but there was some heavy stuff for us. And then there was like more Pink Floyd-ish kind of, the classic rock stuff came out in that as well, right? And by the time the second album came around, which was also happened to be written during time off. It was during COVID, right? I was off work for 6 months. I had all this time. I'm like, I'm going to use this to write and write and write every day. It was just, when you have that time, it's amazing, right? So the lockdown was great for me, still getting my money and, being able to make music. And, we went in and recorded
Living the
the album,
dream, right?
and that's kind of when the sound really developed, because we had been playing shows for a few years before that, right? Where the first album, we had never played a show together. It was literally like Des joined the band. Okay, here's the songs, learn them, and let's record right away, right? We didn't do a show for about a year after the album came out. So playing live definitely develops you. And, we kind of developed from, where Randy would sing a couple tunes and I would sing a couple tunes, and then we started singing together. And a lot of people started saying, you guys kind of have a little bit of an Alice in Chains flavor to you, kind of like that. And I kind of leaned into it a little bit, and that's the band that we get the most comparisons to,
Right.
even though we're really not Alice in Chains. There's a lot of differences, but when we do our two-person vocal with the harmonies and stuff, we really enjoy that aspect of writing. And it's ever evolving.
Yeah, that creative process is interesting because I find that even as we've been together, like our band Heathen Sins has been together for this lineup for coming up on 2 years. In that 2 years playing together, we're also developing our own personal skills as well,
Yeah,
which also enhances the creative writing process. Because I mean, I listen
absolutely.
back to the songs that I wrote in 2015, 2016 that were crap to what's being produced now with Julian writing and Keith and Tyler and Gustavo all adding their stuff to it, that our stuff is developing so fast. And I'm glad that I'm playing with musicians that are better than me because
Yeah,
I'm learning from them as well. And then hopefully they're learning something from me as well. So that creative process, it's ever evolving. And if it ever gets to the
yeah,
point where it's stagnant, it's time to do a change, right?
yeah. 100%, 100%. Yeah. And that's the beauty of it, is trying to always get better, right? We're ultimately, at the end of the day, we're all in our 50s, and we've been doing this a long time, and we love doing this. This is what we love doing, but we're doing it for ourselves first.
Absolutely.
We're writing the music that we want to write. We're playing the way we want to play. We're trying to present a show the way we want to see a show presented. We're we've been doing this a long time. Like, even though I took about 10 years off of playing music, I've been playing in bars since I was 17, right, with fake IDs and all that kind of thing, right? It was a lot easier back then.
Yeah, it
you
sure
know
was.
you know. So
Technology's really fucked us over.
it really has, but it's really, you know, like without the technology, I wouldn't be able to create as much as I do now.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely. Yeah.
I always had the creative juices, but I never always had the means to record it, you know, like other than, you know, with a tape deck, you know.
Yeah, and I mean that's another good topic that I wanted to talk to you about because you've done a lot of recordings as well.
Yeah.
That recording back in the 80s and 90s was very laborious. And I
Yep.
mean unless you actually went to a studio, your sound was garbage, right?
Yeah.
But nowadays with technology, I mean when got back into music in like 2015, I think it was, I started playing again and I was learning how to record at home
Yeah.
compared to what I was used to with an old Tascam 8-track.
Exactly.
You
Yep.
know, and it was a friggin' nightmare. It would take like days to create a guitar track, right? You know?
Yep.
It was horrible. But nowadays, I mean, technology. I mean, I can record right from my guitar, right into my computer, and record. And the technology has allowed us to us hack musicians, right? That you know, the weekend warriors, to be able to actually record, produce our own music and put it out there for people to listen to because I mean we didn't have that technology
Nope.
hell even
Nope.
15 years ago, right? I mean
Yep. Yep.
it's advanced so much. But do you feel that sometimes technology takes away?
100% it does.
Yeah.
Technology absolutely has taken the breath out of rock and roll, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you listen back to the music in the 60s, 70s, 80s, you know, like you listen to a Led Zeppelin track and you just feel it breathe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you put John Bonham to a metronome, he's all over the place. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because he flows with the music. You know, he creates that living creature that music became. And you know, aligning everything to a grid has kind of taken the life out of rock. If you ask me, that's what's gone wrong with rock. Rock isn't dead, it's just there's not as much life to it anymore, you know. And so technology has definitely hindered, it's definitely helped. You know, trying to find that balance is always the key,
Yeah,
right?
especially now with AI and stuff like that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the part that really kind of gets to me. It's almost back to that, you know, the DJ days where they just mix a couple of stuff together. You know, yes, that's creative and yes, that takes a lot of work and I have respect for it, but creating music is like you're taking silence and adding stuff to it, right?
Yeah.
Which is challenging.
Yeah.
With AI, I think that takes away a lot of the heart and soul of the music, right? Because I mean, oh, I just need a keyboard part here, add a couple things, and it's done for you. I want to be able to replicate what you hear on an album to live.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I've struggled with in the last year or so, and up until maybe about 6 months ago, I was struggling to try and keep my live sound and my recorded sound the same. Because there's nothing worse than listening to something on Spotify nowadays, but back in the day it was on an album or a cassette or a CD. And you go to the concert, and you go, this doesn't sound anything like it, right? You know, it's the tone was off. Or
Honestly, that's kind of my favorite part of live music is seeing the differences.
oh, really?
Okay. Yeah, 100%. You know, like when you watch a Led Zeppelin live show on YouTube or something, right? It's completely different than the album, and I love that. I love that it's different every time. But that being said, we definitely don't do that in Stickman. We have used technology. You know, like we use backing tracks up until recently in our music because we're a 3-piece. We can't replicate everything, right? You know, there's layered guitars or more often than not, just, you know, like the background keyboards or percussion or what have you, right?
Fill it in the back end.
Yeah, right. Stuff that kind of gives a song character. And our last show we did, we just, you know, we've been using in-ears for 2 years and all that, right? The last show we did, we took the in-ears out, we left the backing tracks at home, and we just played as a 3-piece. And I tell you, we haven't had as much fun playing live in years. It was refreshing.
Yeah. It's
we're a
less
band.
stress
We're a
worrying about the
band,
technology gonna
and I
crap
can
out
hear
on
you
you
with my own
halfway.
ears. Yeah, it was amazing, and I think that's the direction we're going in now. Is we're going back to just being a band playing live together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, the thing is with a three-piece band, because I mean, I love me a three-piece band. I mean, Motorhead, I mean, one of my very first favorite three-piece bands, ZZ Top,
Yep,
Rush, Triumph. There's been a lot of good three-piece bands that replicate very, very good live
yep,
because there's a lot more separation between instruments,
yep,
right? You're going to hear the guitar a lot more up front. You're going to hear the bass a lot more back there. The drums are going to be a lot more separated because you're not fighting for frequency control, right?
yep, yep.
And yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. It's it's an odd journey being a drummer turned guitar player. I've been playing guitar since I was like 17, so like a long time, right? 35 years. But I was a drummer first. I still think of myself as a drummer, even though I
really,
haven't played live drums in, you know, quite some time. I'm starting to understand loud, at least, I always wanted to be buried, and that was part of the backing tracks for me is I don't have to be as prominent because I'm not a great guitar player.
I
I
hear
can
you.
play guitar, but I'm not a great guitar player. I can't shred, never really been interested in learning how to shred, like that's not my thing. But I can play rhythm guitar because I'm a drummer, right? And now I'm starting to embrace, especially when you're a three-piece without backing tracks. Well, you have to be equally as loud as everything else, right? So,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
it's been
absolutely.
an interesting journey.
Yeah, and along that comes along with technology as well because UDI, were correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going to be starting to try that as well. I traded in my Boss GT 1000 for a Nano Cortex, so I'm going to try and do that as well. I'm fat and old and my back hurts,
Oh,
right? So I
dude.
want to
That's
go
I,
light, you know?
my last amp. I loved it. Like it was a 5150 EL34. I loved the head. It was amazing, and it was, I had the full 412 cab, right? Like it was excellent. Like I loved it, but you know, doing a show at the Railway Club, oh
Oh no, forget it.
man,
I almost died coming down those stairs with a 412 cab.
right?
Yeah, I
So
thought my life
it is
flashed
so
before my
much
eyes.
easier on my old man body.
Hmm.
and and honestly, like most of the people in the crowd, even myself, like,
Well, see, that's the funny part about going to watch other bands. 'Cause, I mean, I try to get out as often as I can. I mean, it's tough. I always want to go and try and see other bands that are playing,
yeah,
support them. You know,
yeah,
bands that support us, I try to go out and support them as well. I mean, it's difficult sometimes when, you have your life and job,
life, yeah,
kids and everything else, right?
yeah,
But when you're going out there and listening to music, we're a lot different when we go out and listen because we're musicians. We're
yeah,
listening for timing, and are they playing in key? They're listening to their sound. We're listening to the things that we would be listening to if we were up there, instead of sitting back and enjoying it, and going, "Fuck, these guys are rocking," right?
yeah,
And that's what I'm trying to learn to do now as well. So like sometimes when I do gigs and when I invite you guys to come out and play with us, because
yeah.
I love listening to your music.
Nice.
And I don't
Thank you.
have to sit there and go, "Oh wow, Randy's tone is really cool on that bass. It sounds kind of nice and raunchy. Oh yeah, Kim's got to come up a little bit more. That part is fucking juicy. I want that up a little bit." I can just sit back and just enjoy it, right? Because it is good, groovy rock and tunes, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
cannot listen to a Stickman show and not be sitting there doing this, right? If you do, then if you're not doing that, you probably check your medication because it's
Well,
good.
thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, that's we try to not only play well, but put on a show, right? And
Yes,
sometimes
you
the
do.
show, trying to put on a show can get in the way of playing well. And, that's rock and roll to me. If I'm going to be honest, like
Mhm.
sometimes, like I'm not going to hit every note, but, like
The
the,
only
the
ones who
show is
know
equally
really are you
important.
guys.
I grew up on Kiss,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, Ace Frehley was the reason I always wanted to play guitar,
Mhm.
you know, as many people, are with Ace Frehley, right?
I
So,
was a huge Kiss fan back in the day. They were actually my first hard. band I guess I started listening to. I mean, I didn't really listen. I mean, I listened to like Black Sabbath and stuff like that, like early Black Sabbath, and Kiss was, I think, was the first one that, even though they weren't necessarily heavier sounding, their
Hmm.
persona, their image, their
Yeah,
everything was heavy, right?
heavy,
Yeah, and that
absolutely.
was, they were the epitome of what was called heavy metal back then. But when you listen to a Kiss song now, we look at it as
It's
classic
classic
rock,
rock. It,
right?
it's not much different than Leonard Skinner. Some of the old stuff,
Yeah,
like it's
exactly.
really not.
Yeah.
It's funny because I have older brother and sister who were big Kiss fans, right? They were 8 and 9 years older than me, and they were big Kiss fans. So I remember, 5, 6 years old, Ace Frehley solo album came out, and I was just obsessed with it. Just obsessed. I would sit with my headphones with the record player, and I would play that album over and over and over again. I just loved Kiss. I was Ace Frehley for Halloween. I don't know how many times before I was 10. Like, oh, I can't wait to put the makeup on for
Right.
Halloween. Like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, those were good times. Kiss was one of those bands that that came out and just shocked the world, right? I
yeah,
mean, they came out and they did a fantastic job. And I actually took my daughter to the Kiss concert, not the last one, the very, I guess they called it the End of the World tour or wherever it
yep,
was.
yep.
Because I remember listening to Kiss in the car with my daughter growing up, right? And she was, I think, 15 at the time I went and saw her, 14, and she just had a blast. And to watch my kid singing Kiss songs that I grew up on
Yep.
was awesome, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
it's just a new
Totally.
generation because music nowadays, I mean, when I say, people say, "Oh yeah, are you in a band?" Yeah, I'm in a heavy metal band. The look on their face, especially if they're not a heavy metal person,
Yeah.
is they're shocked because they, in their head, sometimes they're thinking, but there's so many different genres of, let's say, metal now.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
I go to
100%,
try
right?
and apply for, festivals and all that kinds of stuff, right? And they have these drop down menus of what genre are you? There's like 30 of them. I don't know, right? Because when I was a kid, Kiss was considered heavy metal. Ozzy Osbourne was heavy metal, but sometimes you listen to that stuff now, and it's in a different class all of its own now, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many, and it's like that with every music though. Like with blues, with country, there's so many different subgenres. And I think that's because we're getting a lot of different influences. Like country guys are playing rock songs.
Yeah.
I'm not a big country fan, but I've been to see Eric Church twice and enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Right?
I some of the best concerts I've been to have been Brad Paisley.
Mhm.
Like I'm not a big country guy either, but Brad Paisley, man, that guy can rip. That guy can write a song. He's funny and he puts on a great show. Like I love all genres of music, to be honest. Like there's not really a lot of genres that I won't listen to. Um, I mean, that's the beauty of music, right? It's just so many different ways of expression, and you can connect to pretty much anything if you let yourself, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about gear. You're a guitar player and a drummer.
Yeah,
Right? So let's talk about guitars because I'm a guitar nut myself. What's your
sure.
favorite guitar?
My favorite guitar,
Yes. If you had to go and pick up a guitar right now to play one last song, what guitar are you grabbing?
it would be my ESP.
Yeah.
I have a EC 1000 with the James Hetfield, no, the Zach Wild EMGs in there, and an Evertune bridge. Best guitar I've ever bought. That Evertune bridge is the best thing I've ever done
They're
because
pretty
I
cool,
I
right?
am I am such a heavy player. Like I am so heavy on my right hand.
Same.
I'm forever going out of tune. It's something that I'm trying to fix. As I get older, I'm trying to have a little bit more of a touch. But it's just the drummer in me. I just it's percussive, but
Well, it
that
produces
gu-
its
that
own
that
type of
guitar is
sound too.
amazing. Like I can do a whole show and not go out of tune,
Mhm.
and that's exactly what I need.
Yeah, I got one of those on my new Solar and absolutely love it.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely love it.
Little more painstaking to tune. Like when you do have to tune it every 3 months.
Yeah, very Floyd-ish, right?
but easier, much easier. And I love the fact that I can set it up myself. You know, I can
Mhm.
set up the intonation and do all that myself, and really not have to rely on somebody who really knows what they're doing. You know, just pop on a YouTube video and it's like, oh, okay, adjust this, just this.
Again,
Yeah.
yeah, I've learned so much from YouTube videos, from learning how to record to making
Oh, absolutely.
videos to doing this stupid podcast shit. I mean,
Yep.
I've learned everything from YouTube, right? I mean,
Yeah. YouTube is amazing. Like I started recording, you know, years ago on my computer because I just had this bug. I wasn't playing music anymore, but I still had songs in my head. And I'm like, I have to get this out. I don't want to do it to a 8-track cassette Tascam anymore, you know, like that's how we started. And I mean, we were relentless. We constantly recorded, me and my buddies. Like we were always recording. You know, all the recording studio schools in Vancouver, we would sign up to be the band to record. So we went down there countless times, Columbia recording. I can't even remember all the places we went to. You know, the first album I ever recorded in a band, we recorded at a recording school. It was the producer's final project, record a band. And that was my first CD. And the sound is terrible now, but it was an amazing
well, back
experience,
then, it's all
you
about
know?
the experience, right? I mean,
Yeah, 100%, you
yeah,
know.
for
So
sure.
like I've kind of been in that studio environment for years, but I love the fact that, you know, I think it was about 10 years ago, 12 years ago when I started recording again, and you know, YouTube is your friend. How do I do this? How do I do this? How do I do? Because I was never the guy behind the console. I was the guy in front of the console playing the drums or playing the guitar or doing the singing, whatever it was, right? So I kind of had to learn a little bit from the beginning again, right? But it's an amazing journey and it's something that I really enjoy doing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a user manual kind of guy anyway, so I mean, I literally spent 2 days reading about compression.
That's it. Only 2 days.
Yeah, it's just dry as fuck. Let me tell you, I was like, about by the end of it, I'm like, I don't even know anymore because you're reading, materials from different people's perspectives and everything
Yeah.
else. And some people say, oh, you should use this, or maybe you should try this, and you should try this, and a lot of it's trial and error too, right? I mean,
It really is. And with all that stuff, you know, whether it's EQing or compression or whatever it might be, it can also be a creative component. You know, you can get different sounds just by changing different parameters. And that to me is fascinating and also time consuming because you go down a rabbit hole and you know if you don't save a lot.
yes, yeah, and I'm also at the point now where I'm also backing up my backup. Like I
Yep.
have 3 extra drives because
Yep.
I had one drive. It was 900 gigabytes of just stuff because I have a shit memory. So I record everything I play.
Yep. Yep.
I plug into my interface and I just start put on a drum beat, just start playing because
Yep.
I'll be, that's a really cool riff. That could go somewhere. I'll put my
Yep.
guitar down, go take a leak, have a smoke, come back. Done. Not a fucking clue on how it went, right? So I got to record it because I will literally forget it.
Yep.
And then I've had that drive die where there's
Yep.
like 600 little 1.5 minute pieces of stuff that I thought might be good for something, right?
Yep. Yep. And you know, I had the exact same thing happen to me probably 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. And it was like I was traumatized by it. I had to go get everything recovered because it completely died. And I'm still cleaning up after the fact because every time it got plugged in, it would create a new folder of the same name, just with a, you know, brackets one, brackets two. It got up to like 14 brackets for every one of my files, every single one.
Oh
I'm
god.
still cleaning that shit up 2.5 years later,
Yeah.
but I got it recovered.
Yes.
So yeah.
Gotta love
And I'm
modern
the same way. I
technology.
record everything. I
Yeah, yeah,
record
absolutely.
everything.
And I find that I'm getting influenced by so many different things now. I mean, like when I'm trying to write lyrics, I've tried to pass some of the lyric writing off to Gustavo. So we've been writing lyrics together. The amount of material, like when you started talking about politics and all that kind of stuff, I was like, yeah, I've tried to stay away from that kind of stuff as well because I don't know enough about fucking politics. All I know is how it affects me and my own personal thing.
Yeah.
And
Some
it's
people aren't even that aware. So
yeah, well, exactly right. But and then it becomes very divided. You're either this or you're that, right? And as I try to keep my own personal opinions and all that kind of stuff out of my music writing, but at the same token, I want it's whatever we write about is stuff that I've felt or
yeah,
I've thought about.
yeah,
Or sometimes I'm just baked and I have a great idea for a song premise, right?
sure.
But I find that as I'm getting older as well, what I'm trying to say in the lyrics are a lot more different. Like before, it was like
Sure they
chicks,
are.
cars, parties,
Yeah, yeah,
Now it's more about like wake up and look around what's going on.
yeah,
Like use your own opinions, make your own opinions. Don't borrow someone else's opinions. Do your own research,
yeah.
that kind of stuff. Individual thinking, because since COVID, I've seen such a massive divide in people. You either
Absolutely.
became one or the other. I find that music is the one thing that can bring people together.
Yeah,
So I don't really me personally, I would never want to incorporate anything that would cause a divide,
yeah.
you know?
It's funny, because I don't know how other people perceive my music, or my lyrics specifically, but I know how I'm trying to get them across. I try to make everything ambiguous. I'm a political nerd. I love politics. I studied politics in college. Um, I try to always keep up on everything that's happening as much as I can. It's it's a lot. You can take something out of it. I try not to alienate anybody, but I also try to bring awareness to stuff. Like I don't want to leave a shit planet for my grandkids if I ever get any grandkids. I'm not a grandpa yet. Like I don't want that left for them because, a CEO in my time wanted to make more money, so, like that's what I try to write about, but let people make their own interpretations of what they will, right? So
No, and you made a good point too, because I think having a daughter myself, 17 years old, as she's grown up and as I'm still writing lyrics for songs, I try to make sure that if she's going to listen to my music, I want her to understand and get the message as well, right?
yeah,
And I think before, I mean, in my 20s, I would write about the stupidest shit, right? But it sounded good with the music. When you bark anything out, it's gonna sound good with a heavy riff, right?
yeah, yeah,
As you get older now, and our music style has changed, it still has kind of that '80s metal kind of groove with like a modern sound. I'm
yep,
trying to make sure that the message that I'm spewing out as well, that my daughter would understand it, and that I wouldn't be embarrassed for my daughter to listen to something like that as
yep,
well, right?
yep,
I guess the joys of getting old and being a parent, right? So that's also changed a lot. So that's a really, really good point too, because do as musicians, when we're writing stuff, do we have an obligation for that?
I guess that's a personal choice as a musician, what you want to write about. I don't know. For me, that's just what I'm bent on writing, and I almost feel like I'm being philosophical in my old age in
Yeah.
in
Oh, I hear
in
you.
many ways, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like, oh, if I'd known when I was younger,
Oh,
like
Jesus. Oh, yeah. Hindsight's always
without
2020.
declaring that, hey, I'm old, you know. I try really hard not to declare that I'm old all the time, even though privately I do.
Yeah, true stuff. Yeah, but I mean that's part of evolution and the evolution of music,
Yep.
from the creative concepts. I mean, you can pardon me, you can have any kind of riff in any part of the music. The lyrics finish it off. I mean, I love instrumentals too. I mean, I can listen to Joe Satriani all day long, right?
Sure.
But at the same token, I want to be able to, I like a good message in my songs as well. I mean, I listen back to some of the songs that I listened to when I was growing up. At the time, they were like, yeah, that's awesome. I listen to them
Mm-hmm.
now. They're still awesome, but I understand them maybe a little bit better. You know, I can
Yep.
take it as entertainment. I don't have to take it as, oh, they're preaching or something like that, or
Sure.
they're trying to send a message.
Sure.
It's like watching a movie. I mean, you watch actors playing a role, you're not going to actually think, oh my God, what's his name there? The guy who played Hannibal Lecter. Do you really think he's going to, like snack on your face when you're sleeping? Like, come on, right? He's playing a part. As musicians, we kind of do that in the same way as well. We're
Oh,
making a book or a movie with sound.
100%.
So there's, I believe, as artists, we have the right and the, I guess the right to perform and convey the message that we want to send. It's up to the people to understand that it's music. It's no different than a movie or a book. It's we're creating something, and sometimes, like even sometimes when we're on stage, we portray that 45 minutes I'm on stage. I'm not a dad. I'm not a husband. I'm not this. I'm not that. I'm a guitar player in a heavy metal band, and I'm just going to fucking have fun for 45 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Like yourself, you wear some flashy ass shirts, man.
And I am not a flashy person. That's so funny too.
Well,
Like
it's such an oxymoron.
that is developed over time as well, right? But somebody, I can't remember if it was somebody famous or like another musician or who it was, but somebody said, when I go on stage, I'm not myself anymore. I'm playing a role.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of adopted that a few years ago, probably 3 years ago, and it completely changed how I view myself on stage. I would get quite nervous for shows. I still get nervous for shows, but now I just, I'm playing a role, and I'm not Kim Whitford anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's somebody completely different. That mirror ball shirt that I wear.
Oh my God, you look like a TV dinner.
Totally right. Like,
that's right.
But I get
I love it,
people looking because of it, right? And whatever it takes to get you to notice me and my band and the music that we're playing, I'll do it. Like I don't mind being the flashy guy, right? So
well, it was funny because when you wore it when we played at the Bricklayer. And you said, oh, it's so hot. This first time I'm wearing shorts, and you got this flashy shirt on. And I'm like, yeah, you look like a TV dinner. But it was funny because when the lights going off and it was shiny, I wasn't sure if it was your shirt or it was your forehead, right? Because we got the, but it was awesome. And that's fun because, like you said, you are not Kim when you're on stage. You're a completely different person.
Yeah. And that's a lot of the fun in it, like now I'm kind of incorporating acting into it. It's so funny because I've never been the lone guitar player in a band before until Stickman. I've never been one of the lead singers in a band like this, especially being the only guitar player. It's been such a learning process, and now I've added that extra element of being somebody else on stage. It's it's a lot, but it's a blast. It's ever changing.
What's your pre-gig rituals? I always like to ask other musicians this. Like, what do they do to get themselves pumped?
Well, the adrenaline goes just as people are coming in anyways. It's like, okay, the nervous energy of, okay, I just want to get up there and do my thing. And but so I try to do as much stretching as I can. I try not to eat before a show.
Yeah, me neither.
And I have a beer or two so that, it takes the edge off, but that's about it, and just try to be in the moment too.
Yeah.
That's a really important thing, and that's preparation is what allows you to be in the moment, right? Like, we're pretty strict with our rehearsals. We have the same schedule. We've had the same schedule for I don't know how many years. Every Tuesday, every Friday, that's when we rehearse. Sometimes life gets in the way of that, or shows get in the way of it, but we're pretty regimented with that, and just try to be ready for the show so that you're not thinking about the next chord that you're playing or the next note. You just play, and you're not thinking ahead or thinking behind. You're just in the moment. That's always my goal.
Right. And you guys have a lot of songs now. So how do you guys come up with a playlist?
Oh man, it's it's funny because we have the show coming up on the 22nd with you guys, February 22nd with you guys, right? And we're well, what are we going to do for this show? And we always try to add in, like we do the odd cover here and there, right? So we've got a new cover that we're attempting to do. It's completely out of the genre. It's we're having a blast learning how to play this song and making it a Stickman song, like that's one of the things is we always try to make it sound like, or we don't even try, honestly. Like, it's just the three of us playing together makes it sound like Stickman. And then we just recently added a song back into the mix that we haven't played in quite some time. And we rehearsed last night and we finished playing it and we're like, why did we ever take that out of the set? Like, that's such a good tune,
That's where we're at as well. I mean, we've got, Christ, we got about 22 songs now, right? We've actually had a couple of times where we've had to do a double set. So we play 2 45-minute sets. We have enough material to do that. And we even throw in a couple of cover tunes. I mean, we do Metal Gods by Judas Priest and Shotgun Blues by Volbeat that we'll throw in from time to time.
Yeah.
We technically don't even have to because we've got enough material. Sometimes we'll throw that in because as an original band, you're always going to have at least 25% of the people to 30% of the people who have never heard your stuff before.
Yeah.
Because the other bands will bring their friends and family and fans and all that kind of stuff to the show. So it's always an opportunity to expose your music to other bands, right? And
exactly. Yep.
And whatever. So it's like, we throw them in there from time to time so that the crowd will get a little bit of recognition, right?
Yeah.
So if we throw in Metal Gods near the end of, everyone's going to recognize that song, right? It's just one of those epic songs, right?
Then all of a sudden
it gets their attention.
That's a bit of a philosophy that Randy definitely brings to the band. He has done this since day one. He used to do this in other bands that he played in the past, and we try to put little, so our most successful song, Just Me, is usually like one of the songs near the end of the set. And somebody mentioned to me after it came out that it kind of had the same chord structure, at least in the chorus, as Slither by Velvet Revolver. So what do? Well, we add that in there. We put like a little snippet of that in the song as kind of poking fun at ourselves. And also people will hear it and go, hey, wait a minute, I know that. And it gets their attention again. And we do that throughout the set. We'll do like 16 bars of another tune that's famous that people will recognize that might not even be in our genre. Like we do a White Stripes thing. We do a bunch of different things, right? Just to make people pay attention again. Because, attention spans have gotten shorter as the years go by. And, so anything that we can do to snap people's attention back to, hey, we're here on stage, right? Because especially when you don't know the music, like it's easy to get distracted by the conversation or something going on. And, we're always trying to turn heads. That's,
that's a good point. It's a good point. And that's one of the challenges as well as being an original band and trying to market yourself and get people out to your gigs and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, that's the first few gigs you'll get. You'll always have your friends come out. Then after a while, it's, you got to work on building a fan base. And that also takes a lot of time. You're posting stuff on social medias and sending links to friends and, hey, can you pass this around? And blah, blah, blah.
It's a lot. It's a lot of work, when you don't have somebody doing that full time for you. I got to be honest, like when it comes to social media, like we're not very good at it. We almost feel like we're being intrusive in people's lives, which is so odd because I see other bands posting all the time and I don't I don't think, oh man, these guys post a lot. I never think that. But when it comes to us, I think that.
Mhm.
It's so odd. Like that's one area we definitely need to get better at, where we've kind of slacked off in the last couple years. Like we put out an album last year and we didn't push it on anybody. We didn't, we hardly posted about it. Um, I
You
guess mainly
should though,
because we're
'cause
doing it
it's
for ourselves,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And but and then I go and check the stats on Spotify or Apple Music, and I see, where it's getting played, all around the world, and it's like that's pretty cool.
it is, man.
Somebody in Croatia is listening to Stickman right now. That's pretty cool. You
Yeah,
know?
I mean, as much as I hate Spotify,
Yeah,
I use it as well. I listen to Spotify, and I'm able to send my music out to places in the world where I wouldn't be able to do it otherwise. It would be
yeah,
local.
yeah,
It wouldn't
yeah.
be any further. I mean, I look and same thing, and it's really heartwarming to see that somebody in another country has listened to your song.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's
It's amazing, right? Like on one hand, it's so much easier to put music out, like it's not as hard as it was back in the 80s and 90s, because I did that back then. And it was, you did a lot of walking, a lot of mailing, a lot of letter writing. It wasn't as easy as it is now you know, with emails and, just sending a link. And but now there's so much more competition. you know
oh yeah,
you're competing. Like, how many songs get posted a day on Spotify? Like, it's a ginormous number.
yeah.
It's mind-boggling.
They're the
you
ones
know
making all the money, and
and there, that's a whole other story. I mean, but
we don't do
honestly,
this.
I'm not in this for the
Yeah,
money. If I
exactly.
was, I would have quit a long time ago, because I put a lot more money into it than I get out of it.
Exactly. It's a labor of love because, I mean, you look
Absolutely.
at how much money you've brought in playing gigs or anything like that compared to what you've spent. It's not even a drop in the bucket.
No, no.
Yeah.
When you add up all the costs of rehearsal time and
Hmm.
just all that, right? But man, what else you doing with your life?
Well,
I'm
exactly.
so glad I took up playing music,
Yeah,
you
right.
know?
It's yeah, it's absolutely blast. And I mean, that's just what I tell people as well is like, oh, we got a gig coming up, blah 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 blah. The door is 15 or 20 at the door or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're like, and I'm like, don't give me that shit. You just spent $400 to go see a band that doesn't even know you, and it's $20,
Yeah.
$15. You know
Yeah.
how much work that we have to put in for that? I mean, I know on gig day, if we're playing, let's say the Wolf, I mean,
Yep.
I'm already starting to pack my truck up and organize my gear at noon.
Yep.
My truck's loaded by 5. I'm on the road by 5:30. I'm starting set up at 6:30. I'm out of there by midnight, 12:31. I'm
Yep.
home and in bed by 3. That's
Yep.
a long ass day
That's a
for your
long day.
$15. Come on,
Yep.
you know.
Yeah. And I mean, there's so many good bands still in the lower mainland in
Oh
Vancouver.
yeah.
Like we've played with so many of them, you guys and a whole bunch of others, and it's just like it's kind of sad, the state of the music venue industry, in and around Vancouver. Like, there's next to nowhere to play. Back in the 90s, we were playing shows every week at a different place every week, and we wouldn't play the same place for months.
Mhm.
Like, there's so many places. It was such a vibrant scene.
Back when
The
you got
scene's
paid to
still there. The
draft beer
scene,
tickets.
yeah, but the scene's still there.
Yeah.
It's just not the venues anymore, right? There's, just a limited number of venues, but it's still such a great scene.
Yeah.
Great people, and yeah.
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, I've played with quite a few different bands now in the last 3.5 years, and I don't really think I've played with anybody that I was like, you guys are fucking assholes. I
Yep.
mean, there's been a
Yep.
couple of incidences where things didn't go as smooth as it probably should have.
Hmm.
There are some bands that I would probably not want to play with anymore.
Hmm.
But at the same token, it's not because of personalities or anything like that. It's like sometimes bands just don't jive together, right?
Sure.
And I mean, I think
Sure.
that's like, I know when I start booking gigs and I'm asking bands to come along. I'm trying to keep the music somewhat similar. I'm
Yep.
not going to bring in a blues country band and then play with them, right? As
Yep.
much as some of our fans would like their music, some of their fans, it's just not the vibe that I'm looking for. At the end of the night, you want a nice flow,
Yep.
and
Yep.
all the other local musicians that you play with and all that kind of stuff, especially with the venues that are out there. There's a lot of gear sharing, and all right, it's time to get your shit off the stage and let's fucking go.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And so that's got to work into consideration as well, right? Because there's nothing worse than you're up next and the guys are sitting there, yakking and blah blah blah, not pulling cables, and I'm like, come on, boys, let's go.
Yep. Yep.
You want to get a good flow. And I think for the most part, I've had some pretty good success with that and had some really good gigs. What was your favorite gig? If you can look back and last memory of the best gig you ever played, what would it be?
Honestly, the last show we played was the best gig maybe we ever played, which is really nice because we've had the technology thing again. Like every time we played a show with the backing tracks and all that, it was there was always something that went a little sideways. Like every single time. Sometimes it was noticeable to the crowd. Most of the time it wasn't, I think. Like we would be upset about it after the show, but everybody would be like, I didn't notice, right? But it got in the way of the enjoyment of it. I think the last show at Bullies was fantastic for us. Like we just felt like a band again. Years ago, before the railway shut down, we played one show at the railway, and honestly, it's the only time I've ever did a sound check and the sound guy came up and said, "Hey, can you turn your guitar up?" I'll never forget that. Never had a sound guy ask me to turn up before. And just the reaction, the organic reaction from people we didn't know. It was just, people were there to listen to music and really connect with the music. And I felt like we had a really good connection at the Bullies show and at the railway show,
Railway was so hot though, man.
Yeah.
Pizza oven right below the stage.
Yep. Yep.
I'm a fat guy. I was 30 seconds into it and I'm like,
yep.
I
start sweating before I'm even on stage every show, even with LED lights, like we don't have those old school lights anymore that used to make you sweat instantly anyways, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, I sweat every time I'm on stage. Like it's insane.
Once it gets into my eyes, I'm fucked. And I don't know how many times I've gotten sweat in my eyes, go up to try and sing and bam, smash my face into the microphone.
Yep. Maybe I need to get one of those sparkly headbands.
Oh, there you go. Last couple of times I've been wearing like a floppy toque kind of a thing, right? It's helped because then the sweat doesn't go in my eyes. Because I don't have hair, and you don't have. You say it just like comes out of your head, doesn't absorb into your hair, it just down.
Yep. Goes right into my eyes, and I'm wearing contacts on stage, and it's just that can be a nightmare.
Real world bald guy problems.
100%.
Sinister One podcast. Kim, thanks for your time today, man. It's been an awesome time.
Thank you.
Having a chat with you. I know over the years that we've had numerous chats outside, and I really wanted to have you on the show and get your perspective. I think you're a pretty classy dude. I'm a big fan of your music.
Appreciate that.
A couple little plug for you. Tell us what you got coming up.
Yeah, so the next show, February 22nd at the Wolf Bar, we're playing with yourselves. Who else are we playing with? Who's the other band?
That is Aggressive by Nature.
Yeah. So that's our next show. We don't have anything booked at the moment, but we're going to start booking for spring and summer soon. And we have no plans on recording as of yet, but we're always adding to our live show to make it just a little bit different, we have a few regulars that come out, to almost all the shows, which is amazing, like people that we never met before, know us because of music and come out to almost all the shows. That's amazing. That's amazing, like just to connect with other people that way. So we don't have anything else other than the February 22nd show, but it'll be a little different than the last show. and it'll always be fun because it's
Absolutely.
a Stickman show.
We'll talk. I'm sure we'll have something coming up this year for you.
Excellent.
Awesome. Look down here on below here. I'll have his links and all that kind of stuff where you can check out Stickman and all their socials and all that kind of good stuff. Kim, it's been a pleasure, man.
Yeah, pleasure's all mine. Thank you.
All right, boy. Have a good one.
You too.